Hello everyone, welcome to Bajirao IAS Academy, the Hindu news analysis. Today is 22nd August 2024 and we have some important articles in this discussion, and without any delay, one by one we'll discuss all these important and articles, right? So we'll try to discuss different dimensions of these articles which are given in different newspapers. And yesterday I have given to you one prelims practice question. The question was with respect to the 2+2 dialogue between India and Japan. In fact, yesterday in a news article, we have discussed that 2+2 dialogue was held between India and Japan. Right, so that is true. In fact, India has a 2+2 dialogue with other countries also, because we have discussed as part of yesterday's discussion that India already has a 2+2 dialogue mechanism with Australia, Japan and Russia. But in the year 2013, there was also a 2+2 dialogue that was held between India and UK. But as of now, an institutionalized method of 2+2 dialogue is between Australia, Japan, Russia and US. So correct answer can be option D. And in fact, with UK also we have the 2+2 dialogue that was started in the year 2023. So we could say that both B and D are the correct answers for this question. Right, so 2+2 partners, and as I've already told you that with United States, so United States is India's foremost and oldest partner in the 2+2 format. Now when we talk about India's 2+2 format, 2+2 dialogue with all the countries, so we have the oldest 2+2 dialogue with the United States. And in fact, the inaugural 2+2 dialogue between India and United States took place in the year 2018 when President Donald Trump was in power in USA. And with Australia, we also have 2+2 dialogue, and in fact this 2+2 dialogue with Australia will further strengthen the security and defense cooperation between India and Australia. Remember, so India and Australia are like-minded countries with a shared vision and common interests, and because of that reason, so these two countries are having a 2+2 dialogue. And Japan, don't forget that Japan and India are again like-minded countries with shared vision and common interests, and they also have the same concerns with respect to Chinese aggressiveness in the Indo-Pacific region. However, with Japan, the 2+2 dialogue was started in the year 2019. However, the objective of 2+2 dialogue between India and Japan is to further strengthen or bolster the diplomatic or the strategic strength in security and defense cooperation, and that we have yesterday discussed. And with United Kingdom also, recently in the year 2023, so we initiated a first 2+2 dialogue also, and in fact it also signifies defense, military, security cooperation, along with giving importance and priority to important areas in the bilateral relationship. And with Russia also we have a 2+2 dialogue mechanism, and remember, Russia is an all-weather friend and we have a special and privileged strategic partnership with Russia. So therefore, this 2+2 dialogue with Russia will actually foster a mutually beneficial understanding on various regional and international issues. Right. So today also I have a very important prelims practice question. So this question is: the Ministry of Home Affairs can designate individuals as terrorists under which of the following provisions? And option A, Prevention of Terrorism Act of 2022 and National Security Act 1980, and C, the Unlawful Activities Prevention Amendment Act of 2019, and none of the above. Right, so try to answer this question in the comment section, and I will be providing you the correct answer in tomorrow's class. Right, so now one by one we'll start our discussion, and we will also try to understand different articles and their importance. Now first and foremost, so how import dependence can actually weaken Indian pharma sector. Now a few things that we need to understand about Indian pharma sector. So Indian pharma sector is known as the global pharma capital, right? So we are known as a global pharma hub or global pharma capital. Now remember, when COVID-19 struck the world, majority of the vaccines are being produced in India because we have a huge vaccine manufacturing base in India, and we have produced a lot of vaccines in our country and in our production basis. And in fact, we have also supplied those vaccines to poor and underdeveloped countries under India's ambitious Vaccine Maitri program, because India is a leader of the global south. And in fact, in order to ensure the vaccine equity, we have supplied vaccines to poor and underdeveloped nations. We did not show a vaccine nationalism, rather we have the concern for all poor nations in the global south, and in fact India is a leader of the global south. So remember that we have a strong presence of the pharma sector in the country, but the problem is that the main ingredients in the pharma industry, which are active pharmaceutical ingredients, or which are also known as APIs, and 80% of the APIs are being imported from countries like China. So this essentially means that on main ingredients like active pharmaceutical ingredients, we have dependent a lot on countries like China. So whenever there are geopolitical tensions between India and China, then this import dependence of India on China could be exploited, could be leveraged to their benefit, to their advantage, and that could further weaken India's pharma industry, because as of now Indian pharma industry has been enjoying the global reputation as the global pharma hub, the global capital of pharmaceutical industry. So we will try to understand the context. The context is that in fact ensuring the affordability of pharmaceuticals is a very important and a very essential aspect for controlling the healthcare costs. And in fact in India, the out of pocket healthcare expenditure is very high. According to National Family Health Survey, the out of pocket expenditures in India ranges to around 43%. However, the affordability of medicines is very important to control the healthcare costs, specifically in India, because we have a huge population, and we our population are also vulnerable to a wide range of diseases, and in fact we also have a crippled healthcare infrastructure. And in a country like India, so affordable healthcare is very important, where out of pocket expenditures have increased to nearly 47.1% of the total expenditure in the year 2021. In fact, there were two initiatives that were launched in this context to meet the domestic requirements through imports. Now, what are those initiatives that were launched by the government to meet the domestic requirement through the import of essentials or raw materials which can be used to manufacture the pharmaceuticals? And in fact, the Department of Expenditure, which is under Ministry of Finance, order permitting the Ministry of Health to procure around 120 medicines through the global tenders to supply union government schemes. There are a number of union government schemes, and in order to supply medicines, very important essential medicines, to various government schemes, the Ministry of Finance, a separate department called Department of Expenditure, has issued an order, and that order permitting the Ministry of Health to procure around 120 medicines through global tenders from different countries. And in fact, this order and the list includes several top selling anti-diabetic medicines and anti-cancer drugs, right? So these anti-diabetic and anti-cancer drugs are being part of the 120 medicines that we have been importing from other countries. And in fact, over 40 of these 120 medicines that the Department of Expenditure order specifies a specific brand to be procured. Now what we can observe from this is that there is a huge monopoly of one single brand or one single company in the procurement of around 40 medicine out of 120 medicines. So this essentially means that there is a huge monopoly of medicines, and monopoly would not be good for in terms of affordability, because whenever one single brand or one single company have enjoying the monopoly, that essentially means that the company can actually fix a higher prices than the market prices, and it makes the medicine less affordable for the normal people, and generally they cannot access such medicines if their prices are very high, and therefore there is a need for the diversification of procurement of such medicines. We very often hear about the diversification of supply chains, right? So in a same way, we need to diversify the procurement of essential medicines. We should not procure all the medicines from one single company, because that would result in a huge monopoly, and hence we need to focus on diversification of medicine, diversification of these supply chains. And in fact, in the year 2024-25 union budget, and this particular budget has proposed removing 10 to 12 percentage of the customs duty on 3 cancer medicines. Now understand, these 3 cancer medicines are very important, but these medicines are not readily available in India. We have been importing these medicines from European and North American countries. So therefore, reducing the customs duty on the import of essential cancer medicines will make those medicines more and more affordable. Now remember, cancer is a life-threatening disease. When medicines are provided at an affordable price, so it will help the beneficiaries by making those medicines more accessible and affordable also, because that would help in reducing the prices of the medicine. And another important concept that the authors have discussed in this editorial is a biosimilars. Biosimilars is also a very important concept in the arena of pharmaceuticals, and in fact these biosimilars are biological medical products, right? So for example, when we talk about the pharmaceuticals are chemical medical products, but there are certain biological medical products, and these biological medical products are highly similar to an already approved original biologic, so that is known as the reference product. And in fact, this biosimilars would not have no differences with the already existing original biological. And in fact, in terms of safety, purity and potency, these biosimilars are exactly similar to the reference product biological medicine, right? So these are known as the biosimilars. Now there are certain guidelines which are already issued by the government of India with respect to the biosimilars. So what are those guidelines, and what is the difference between the guidelines of India and other countries with respect to the biosimilars? We will try to understand this. And in fact, so when we talk about India's biosimilar guidelines, so these guidelines are outdated and they are old guidelines, and since they are old and outdated guidelines, it actually requires a mandatory animal studies, right? So it requires mandatory animal studies, and these mandatory animal studies can no longer necessary in developed countries like US and European Union, because these countries as of now have been implementing a very stringent regulatory standards. And in India, there is an absence of stringent regulatory standards, and because of this particular reason, there is a need for there is a necessity for mandatory animal studies in countries like India. And in fact, the stringent requirements for the animal studies and mandatory clinical trials actually create a significant barriers for the Indian producers, and in fact it would also make them difficult for them to compete with their global counterparts in the international markets. Because understand one thing, that when you talk about European Union and North American countries, they very often implement a very stringent requirement for the animal studies, and even the mandatory clinical trials are being done. So that would create a significant barriers for the Indian producers, and it would further make them difficult to compete the Indian products with the global or the European markets or global counterparts also. However, there is an association called International Generic and Biosimilar Medicines Association, right? So this is an association, and in fact according to this association, eliminating these duplicative administrative requirements could actually lead to a significant saving in time and resources, and ultimately improving the patient access to the affordable biosimilars. So this is what the International Generic and Biosimilar Medicine Association has actually referred with respect to the biosimilar medicine. Now, one thing that we need to understand here is that India has been producing a lot of medicine, and India has also been supplying these generic medicines. So these are known as generic medicine, but they are equivalent to the branded medicine, but those medicine have already the expiry of the patent. After the expiry of the patent, the medicine, the branded medicine patent would be given to all other Indian companies to manufacture and sell the tablets of medicine in other countries or within India also at a much lesser price. Okay, so next, a very important article is with respect to Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit to Poland, right? So in this context, we will understand India-Poland relations in a very detailed and comprehensive manner, right? So context is that it is in fact the first visit by Indian Prime Minister, right? So in fact, it is the first visit by Indian Prime Minister to Poland in last 45 years, and because of this reason, it is very significant visit of Prime Minister Narendra Modi to Poland. And Poland is a country which is located in the Central Europe, right? So it is located in the Central Europe. And the other thing that we need to understand, during the Cold War times, so Cold War took place between the Western Bloc or the capitalist bloc led by US and the socialist bloc or the Eastern Bloc led by USSR. And during Cold War times, Poland was in the camp of USSR. And in fact, when we come to Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit to Poland, so this visit will actually serve as a natural continuation of extensive contacts that we have with Poland since several decades and centuries, that we have been enjoying a positive relations. We have been enjoying the best possible relations. However, India in recent times trying to engage with the Eurasian countries, and Poland is also part of the Eurasian. And in this context, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit is very important to further strengthen India's relations with Poland. And in fact, both India and Poland have marked 70 years of diplomatic relations, and Poland is also known as the key economic partner in the Central Europe. So we will try to understand India-Poland relations in a very brief and detailed manner, the background of India-Poland relations. So India and Poland diplomatic relations were established in the year 1954, right? So the relations between India and Poland are actually established. So the diplomatic relations, so they were established in the year 1954, and in fact, so this has been led to the establishing or opening of Indian embassy in Poland, or the capital of Poland is Warsaw, in the year 1957, right? So this is Poland, and remember that Poland is now an ally of European countries such as UK, France, and even it is an ally of USA. And Poland has been supporting Ukraine in its war against Russia. And Prime Minister Narendra Modi decided to visit both Poland and Ukraine in his as part of his foreign visit. And in fact, when we come back to India-Poland relations, these two countries have been enjoying a shared common ideological perceptions, and these ideological perceptions between India and Poland are actually based on the opposition to certain historic evils such as colonialism, imperialism, and racism. So these are the main ideals that have been guiding India-Poland relations in the past, and in fact the relationship continued to flourish between these two countries even after the disintegration of the USSR. Remember, as I have already told you, that Poland is part of USSR campaign. However, after the disintegration of Soviet Union, and Poland started adopting the democratic path, right? So they were earlier socialist countries, but after the fall or disintegration of Soviet Union, they started adopting the democratic path, and a cordial political relationship has emerged in the current century. So in this century, a cordial political relationship has emerged And in fact, particularly Poland has joined European Union in the year 2004. Remember, we have a very close relationship at multiple levels with the European Union, and we have also been negotiating a free trade agreement with the European Union. And in fact, India can also, so Poland can become one of India's key economic partners in the Central European region. Remember, this region is known as the Central European region, and in the Central European region, Poland is a very, very important partner for India. Now we'll try to look into the cultural relations between India and Poland, because we also have a strong cultural relations with this country, because as of now there is a strong tradition of Indology studies. So Indology studies in the sense that, so they study Indian culture, Indian heritage and Indian arts. So everything would be studied in a very detailed and in-depth manner. So that tradition is known as the tradition of Indology studies, and these Indology studies are very, very popular in Poland. And in fact, so one example which indicates that Indology is a very famous in Poland is that the Polish scholars have actually translated the Sanskrit texts, right? So ancient Indian language. So there are a lot of Sanskrit texts, and these scholars from Poland have actually translated these Sanskrit texts into Polish as early as the 19th century. And in fact, Polish mission has also organized 150th birth anniversary of Mahatma Gandhi in the year 2019. Remember, so in the year 2019 we have celebrated the 150th birth anniversary of Mahatma Gandhi. On the same in the same year, Poland has also marked the 150th birth anniversary of Mahatma Gandhi. And in fact, on the occasion of 550 Prakash Purab of Guru Nanak Dev Ji, a mission and Gurudwara Sahib of Poland jointly organized functions at Gurudwara Sahib in Poland. And in fact, India is the country which has introduced yoga, which has popularized yoga at the international level. And in fact, the first international day of yoga was also organized in around 21 cities across Poland on June 21st 2015, because remember, June 21st is the International Yoga Day that is being announced by the United Nations on the initiative of India. And in fact, from Poland, an estimated 11,000 people have participated in this public event. And apart from that, approximately 10,000 Indian community were living in Poland. And in fact, this Indian community who are living in Poland or any other country called as diaspora, so they're being called as diaspora, and they actually consist of traders, textiles, garments, electronics, and who came after the collapse of the communism, and professionals with multinational Indian companies and software IT experts, including rising number of Indian students, right? So diaspora has been playing a very important role in further strengthening India's relations with Poland in a multiple arenas. And after that, the economic and commercial relationship with Poland is also another very important area of engagement of India with Poland, because remember that with Poland, it is a central European country, and India's engagement with the European Union and Eurasia has gained a lot of traction in recent times. So therefore, in this context, so it would help in further strengthening India's relations with overall European Union. And Poland is the largest trade partner and export destination for India within the Central European region. So if you take all the Central European region, and within this particular region, Poland is India's largest trade partner, and not just largest trade partner, it is also one of the largest export destination, with bilateral trade has been growing almost a sevenfold over the last 10 years. And in fact, as part of Indian statistics, the overall value of bilateral trade in the year 2019 was US dollars 2.36 billion. So 2.36 billion dollar is the total trade that India has with the Poland. But 2.36 billion dollar is comparatively a lesser a trade that India is having compared to China's trade with Poland, which is many fold higher than India's. So there is a huge potential potential, and this potential has to be explored, and we need to further enhance India's trade with the Poland. We need to look for the opportunities. We need to have a free trade agreements or preferential trading agreements with such countries, because that would over a period of time will help India emerge as a manufacturing powerhouse or economic powerhouse, and it will also strengthen India's trade with such countries. And in fact, when we talk about the strengths of Poland, Poland as of now has possessed world class food processing industry. So this world class food processing industry includes preservation and storage technologies also. But on the other hand, India is one of the largest producers of many fruits, dairy and agro products. So that thing we need to understand. So India is one of the largest producers of dairy items, largest producer of food items. So therefore, in this context, it is very, very important that India and Poland can actually converge on this front, and Poland could actually transfer the food processing technology and can even train Indian entrepreneurs on this food processing technology, so that will help both these countries converging their strengths. So India and Poland have also signed a memorandum of understanding in the year 2019, specifically to enhance bilateral cooperation in the areas of coal and even mining sector also. And when we talk about India's investments in Poland or Indian private sector presence in Poland, around 13 Indian IT companies which have been employing more than 10,000 professionals are currently active in Poland and are also operating their Europe operation from Poland itself. So this is how Poland is very important for India, and India-Poland relations are very, very important, because they could actually play a game changer role in the Central European region. And next important article is very important, because recently there was a polio strain that was reported in Meghalaya. So Meghalaya is a northeastern states, and in fact India successfully eliminated polio from this country in the 2014 itself, right? So a World Health Organization has announced that India has eliminated polio, but it is a cause of concern that this polio strain has been recently found in the state of Meghalaya. So when we talk about this context, a new strain of polio has infected 2-year-old child at a place called Tikrikilla in West Garo Hills in the state of Meghalaya. And we will try to understand what exactly is this polio virus. So polio is a crippling and potentially deadly viral infection, right? So it is a deadly viral infectious disease, and this particular disease affects the nervous system of the people. So therefore, polio virus is a deadly and dangerous virus. And remember, India has successfully eliminated the polio disease, a polio virus, through number of initiatives. And in fact, polio virus can also invade the central nervous system, and as it multiplies, destroy these nerve cells that actually activate muscles and even causing irreversible paralysis in hours. So whenever any individual or any child is being infected with this polio virus, so that could immediately affect the central nervous system of the individual, and once it affects the central nervous system, it immediately starts multiplying, and then it would destroy the nerve cells, and then it activates nerve cells are actually known for activating muscles. So once it destroys the nerve cells, so that would causes irreversible paralysis in hours. And in fact, person-to-person transmission of polio virus is possible. It could transmit mainly through fecal and oral route, or less frequently by a common vehicle, for example through a contaminated water or food sources. So these are the ways through which polio is being transmitted from person to person, right? So since it is contagious in nature, since it transmits from person to person, it is a very serious disease, and in fact it largely affects the children under the age of 5 years. So therefore it is a cause of concern, because in India, so we have mothers who are comparatively at a lesser age because of child marriages, and lesser levels of literacy and poor healthcare infrastructure. So there is a higher vulnerability in the rural areas that the children under 5 years may not be adequately vaccinated, and that could create a problem, or that could lead to the large scale infections of polio. Now we need to talk about the polio vaccines. Now understand, there is no cure. However, it can be prevented through immunization. Now, once a person infected with the polio, there will be no cure, no tablet, no medicine, nothing will work. However, polio can be prevented through the timely immunization of the children under the age of 5 years. And in fact, there are two types of vaccines for the polio as of now. So first type of vaccine is oral polio vaccine, or it is also known as OPV vaccine. So during our childhood days, we all remember how polio vaccines are being given to every child. So this oral polio vaccine is being administered orally by a birth dose for the institutional deliveries. Whenever the deliveries actually takes place in the hospitals, so those deliveries are known as institutional deliveries, and in fact they are actually given orally as a birth dose in the case of institutional deliveries, when the primary 3 doses at 6, 10 and 14 weeks and 1 booster dose at 16 to 24 months of age is being given, or it is being administered. And in fact, injectable polio vaccine, or it is also known as IPV, injectable polio vaccine, it is introduced as additional dose along with third dose of diphtheria, pertussis, tetanus under the universal immunization program, right? So there will be a universal immunization program, and it will be administered through the universal immunization program. So this is another mode of administering the polio vaccine. However, the polio vaccine, or it is not free from the challenges. When we talk about the polio virus, polio vaccine, it is not free from the challenges, because despite there are a lot of efforts such as universal immunization program, so we had seen the cases of polio, that the children being infected with the polio. For example, as of now, the eradication and elimination of polio remains elusive, right? So still there are a scattered number of cases of polio due to challenges like misinformation, limited access to conflict zones. So this is remote and rural areas. This is another major challenge. Don't forget that still Pakistan, our neighbor, not yet eliminated polio vaccine. So therefore there may be a spillover effect, and that could poses a challenge for India also in terms of re-emerging these polio strains. And in fact, continued global cooperation vaccination campaigns are very, very important to achieve the complete eradication of the polio, right? So there are a number of benefits of polio vaccination. For example, prevention of polio infection and elimination of polio related disabilities, and in fact achieving herd immunity to protect the community. Remember, herd immunity has become a very wide and popular concept during the COVID-19 pandemic also. So herd immunity essentially means that when we have a large number of people, so just administer vaccine to a small group of people, so that would actually help break the disease cycle or disease chain from one person to another person. And apart from that, the global efforts to eradicate polio and in fact improve quality of life and individuals and communities, and this will also over a period of time help in achieving the majority of the sustainable development goals as well. So therefore we should not undermine the potential harm that the polio could actually cause if it re-emerges, right? So what are the measures that are taken in India in this context? So Pulse Polio program was already launched to eradicate polio in India, and in fact it is an intensive campaign that was undertaken across different villages and even urban centers through the primary healthcare hospitals. And secondly, intensification of Mission Indradhanush 2.0 scheme launched, and universal immunization program, which is also known as UIP. And in fact this particular program was launched in the year 1985, with the modification of expanded immunization program. And in fact the objectives of the expanded immunization program so includes rapidly increasing immunization coverage and improving the quality of services, establishing reliable cold chain systems to the health facility level, and even introducing a district wise system for monitoring of the performance, achieving self sufficiency in vaccine production, right? So these are some of the measures that were already taken with respect to the polio eradication. And apart from that, so we have another very important mains practice question today. So this mains practice question is with respect to the lateral entry, and lateral entry is very important when it comes to the general studies paper 2, and it is very often in use. And yesterday also we have discussed about this lateral entry scheme, right? So the question is, recently center decided to cancel the lateral entry into civil services, and in this context critically analyze how lateral entry helps in further strengthening governance in India. So this is the question, and a very simple question, a very simple and straightforward question. So if you understand the demand of the question, you could answer it well, right? So first and foremost, we need to structure the answer. It is very important. We need to understand the approach of the question. So when you look into the approach of the question, so first and foremost, you need to write the introduction. In the introduction, so just define what is lateral entry into the civil services. So just write this very briefly in the introduction, and then in the second part of the answer you could also write or briefly mention why recently government cancelled the lateral entry scheme or lateral entry into the civil services. What are the reason? So you could also briefly mention that, so it will help you that you also added the current dimension of the lateral entry. And third, you could briefly mention, you could actually in the body part mention the advantages of the lateral entry scheme. And secondly, you could also critically analyze lateral entry. What are the shortcomings, what are the limitations, what are the disadvantages, and ultimately you conclude the answer by providing appropriate suggestions on this. And firstly, in the introduction you just write lateral entry actually allows. So what is lateral entry? You need to write about that. So yesterday I've told you, and today also I'm explaining that lateral entry is bringing in expert knowledge or expertise into the specific domains of the government, or domain knowledge into the different administrative systems, so that as of now governance has been becoming more and more technology oriented. And civil servants are generally known as generalists, and they cannot actually head the domain specific, they don't have domain specific knowledge. However, through the lateral entry, the government has been planning to bring in individuals who have the expertise and experience in different domains or different fields. So then they will be taken into the civil services at two different levels, mid-level and senior level positions, instead of starting from the bottom through the traditional recruitment process. Now in the traditional recruitment process, UPSC conducts civil services examination and recruit candidates, and these recruited candidates through UPSC, so they will go through different tiers. But in the lateral entry scheme, it is being absent, so they would be directly recruited into the middle and higher level services. And in fact, recently UPSC has announced 20 vacancies for the lateral entry scheme, right? So in fact 45 vacancies I think UPSC has announced. And so who actually recommended lateral entry scheme? So that we will try to understand this very briefly. So Niti Aayog, and in fact it has released a 3-year action agenda and the sectoral group of secretaries on governance in its report. So that was submitted in February 2017. So this report was submitted in the year 2017, and it has recommended the induction of personnel at the mid-level and senior management levels in the central government. However, the central government directed Union Public Service Commission on Tuesday that to withdraw the advertisement issued by the UPSC days ago. And in fact, the union government also seeking applications for the lateral entry. UPSC has been seeking applications for the lateral entry to senior bureaucrat posts at the center. However, the opposition political party and different stakeholders started criticizing the government bringing in experts domain specialists through the lateral entry scheme, because their contention was that not having reservations for scheduled castes, scheduled tribes and other backward classes, this was their main and major intention, right? So contention. So apart from that, so we need to talk about the benefits, the advantages of the lateral entry scheme. So as I have already told you, the lateral entry scheme would actually help in bringing specialized skills and knowledge, and that will help in further bringing in more and more innovation and domain specific knowledge into the civil services. And there are a lot of technical areas which actually require the specialized skills, knowledge and expertise. And the work culture should also be actually evolved and should also be modified. However, lateral entry, it is expected that it would improve the civil services efficiency, and that is very very important, because civil services nowadays becoming more and more participatory and outcome oriented, innovative and technology driven. So therefore, through the lateral entry scheme, private sector experts would be brought in to manage the complex projects and even streamline the processes also. And apart from that, there will be a faster decision making that would also be possible, because lateral entry can actually speed up the decision making by bringing fresh ideas, and that could actually challenge the traditional practices. And it would also help in bridging the gap, because the lateral entry can actually help in bridging the gap between the government and the private sector by bringing in individuals with experience in different sectors. And in fact, the lateral entry scheme, it is also expected that it provides stakeholders such as private sector, non-profit organizations an opportunity to participate in the governance and processes. And it is also expected that as of now, the civil services who are generalists, they lack a competition, a healthy competition. Lateral entry could actually provide a healthy competition to the existing civil servants. And apart from that, it could create a competitive environment, because civil servants as of now, they are reluctant to change. They're reluctant to change, and there is a traditional hierarchy, there is a higher levels of corruption, right? So through lateral entry, we could expect that there will be a new competitiveness within the civil services to provide better services to the people. So however, lateral entry is not free from the challenges. It has been facing a lot of challenges, right? So for example, when we talk about the lateral entry scheme, the newcomers will work with the government only for 3 years, and that could be extended for a period of up to 5 years. However, it is a very short and a very brief period of time, and when they are coming from the private sector into the government sector, so it actually takes some time for them to acclimatize in the domain that they were involved in. So therefore, 3 years is a very short span of time, and the government could actually reconsider giving sufficient span of time for the lateral entrance. And apart from that, it is very important that the civil services must protect the objectivity and neutrality. So there should not be any partiality, biasness, and they should preserve the objectivity, and they should be politically neutral. And in this context, bringing in officials, bringing in individuals from the private sector who actually preserves the values of objectivity and neutrality, it would be challenging for the government. And in fact, there are also concerns with respect to the conflict of interest, because remember, so most of these individuals are coming from the private sector, so therefore there would be a conflict of interest and even loyalty to the companies that they were working in previously. And there is also a chance that they would be more and more biased towards the private sector, right? Because they previously they had association with the private companies and even a lot of interest groups also. And in fact, it is also expected that the lateral entry scheme would actually bring down the morale of the existing civil servants or existing permanent officers, because increased lateral entrance over a period of time this leads to political leadership may end up creating a divide between the permanent officers and temporary lateral entrants, and that would further hamper the morale of the permanent officers, and there will be a potential dilution of the merit based recruitment as well, because the introduction of lateral entries, so they might dilute the merit based recruitment system, so that has been foundation of the civil services. And if not executed transparently, this lateral entry scheme could even lead to the problems such as favoritism, nepotism in the selection process. However, the government's objective of bringing domain expertise into the civil services is a good idea, but it has to be ensured in a proper manner to prevent favoritism, nepotism, and protect the values such as objectivity and neutrality. So it has to be seen that how the government would actually further reform and further enhance the efficiency of lateral entrants without showing any conflict of interest. Right, that's all in this lecture, and thank you so much. So if you like our work, please subscribe our YouTube channel and also hit the like button. Thank you.